YouTube! How's it going? It's Multiplier here. In this video, I'm going to answer a question I get asked an awful lot. So, that question is this. What is mastering? Mastering is taking your project, so taking your project file, your completed song, your completed track in your DAW, could look a little bit like this. Taking your completed song, your completed track in your DAW and writing it into a file. A single WAV, a single file ready for the world. That is mastering. Everything else that you might associate with mastering is really, in my opinion, actually just mixing, or even just sound design and songwriting and arranging at times too. So mastering is creating this final file, and not just that, but making the most of this available space in this file we're creating. So for example, if you simply take a project in your DAW and your completed song and you hit export and you just export it without mastering, the file may look a bit like this. This is your file and the song, the waveform, the song inside of that file. But remember, we want to make the most of this available space. That's part of mastering. It's not just writing the file, it's making the most of this available space. So probably, in fact, definitely the most important part of mastering is limiting. So maximizing the waveform in this file we're creating. So we've got this potential space, we've got this limit of an audio file that we can write into, and we want to make the waveform as maximized as possible to make the most of things effectively. So before and after. Before mastering, after mastering. Maximized. That is the most important part of mastering, and you do it doing limiting, although sometimes it's called maximizing, such as in Ozone or the L2 Waves Maximizer, whatever it's called. So it's sometimes called maximization or maximizing, but it's limiting really, which is technically also a form of compression, so you could kind of call it compression, but most people wouldn't. They would call it limiting. So that is the most important part about mastering. Other things to consider is the general preparation of this file. Remember, we're preparing a file for the world. So things to think about are dithering, research dithering. You can learn it in 20 minutes, half an hour, easy peasy, once you've seen it before. Also, headroom for conversion to MP3. You want to leave, depending on the track, 0.5 dB of headroom, or up to 1.5 dB at times, maybe. It's quite rare to need that much, but it's between 0.5 dB and 1 dB of headroom on your final WAV. See my video on why you need to leave loads of headroom for MP3 conversion if you're curious. So just Google, why do you need loads of headroom on your MP3 multiplier, YouTube? That'll do the trick. So that's other considerations. Other considerations still would be things like loudness. How does your track stack up loudness-wise to other tracks? It's a pretty big topic, which I still haven't done the video for. But yes, loudness is another consideration, which you can measure using LUFS or your ears. But as I'll show you in the video that I should have done by now, but I haven't, there's a lot more to it than that because of perceived loudness normalization and a whole bunch of other things. So loudness is definitely a mastering consideration. It's preparing it for the world. Also, the balance of frequencies, so EQing effectively. So maybe you finished your song, but compared to other songs, it's a bit bass heavy, so you might want to rebalance it after you've written the song to make your track sit more in that same ballpark as other people's tracks. You can use EQ, and you can measure EQ actually using snapshots. So you could little thing here, isn't that? Oh, brilliant! Measuring EQ using snapshots, fantastic. Look at that. Oh, brilliant. So you can measure these things too. Importantly, mastering is not for fixing stuff. I do like flying things up here. Mastering is not for fixing stuff. Mastering is not for fixing stuff. Mastering is not for fixing stuff. I've said it 3 times because it's important, and then you will definitely remember it. If you need to fix something, maybe it's a hi-hat that's poking out too much, or maybe it's the kick-bass relationship, don't do that at mastering. Instead, go back to the mix and fix it in the mix because it's more direct. If you think about it, it just makes logical sense. If you're having to do, say, multi-band compression on the lower frequencies to readdress the kick-bass relationship at mastering, to fix that, wouldn't it be better if you just did that in the mix? It would. It will be cleaner, and also you're not then applying it to the entire mix. Remember, what you do at mastering is applied to the entire thing all at once, which isn't as easy or as clean. Anyway, the important thing is that mastering is just getting your file ready for the world. It's not for fixing stuff. It's not just I'll fix it at mastering. I'll fix it at mastering. No, 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 no. That's not what you should be thinking. Mastering is basically just limiting, really limiting, and then a few small corrections if need be. I mean, for example, in the case of you needing to do some EQ, if you have to do some surgical EQ to maybe fix a little resonancy peak or something, or maybe tidy something up, that would be something you should do in the mix. So you're not applying this surgical EQ. So you're not applying this surgical EQ to everything. You're just fixing the thing that needs fixing in the mix. Much cleaner, much better. Whereas if say you've spent ages on a track, you've got your track perfect, it's all balanced, but maybe it just needs a bit of a high shelf, all the frequencies just a little bit twisted upwards to increase or make the higher frequencies louder. To rebalance, to basically do this sort of effect with EQ, rebalancing this in the mix would take forever, because you'd have to basically go through each element one by one, do a tiny tweak and then adjust the levels, and it'd be a headache. And it would be a disaster. It would be a disaster. You had it all balanced and then you do a tweak and it's all unbalanced. So sometimes if it's just for doing just a broad stroke EQ fix at the end, so everything's still balanced, but a little bit of a twist, that would be the sort of fix that's okay at mastering. Make sense? These are guns. That is what mastering is. My name has been Multiplier, and I will catch you guys on the shit. There's a USB emergency. I need a USB cable really fast. Oh, I've got it really quick. Good job. I had that. Good job in that emergency situation. I had that readily available. Otherwise, I might have not got to the USB emergency in time. So that's just made a cool little thing to flippity flip. Made a cool little thing to get the USB cable in times of emergency. So that's good. Show you that and maybe the next video.